some of the same ingredients we did last week, so we aren't wasting food. I try to find recipes that tie the ingredients together so that we learn how to shop for one thing, but we have multiple uses for it. So we're going to learn how to make some protein balls today. Now, one thing that a lot of clients like to bring for snack is a granola bar. And actually, granola bars aren't as healthy as what people think they should be because they're full of a lot of sugar. So a lot of people don't realize that. So we're going to learn a healthier way to make them ourselves with ingredients that we can actually pronounce too. Many of you don't know this, but I started my career as a chemist working in pharmaceuticals. And so for me, cooking is a lot like an experiment. I try different healthier options and then ways to incorporate the same ingredients in other healthier versions of recipes. So that's what we're kind of trying to teach you here, okay? Now, some of the recipes are going to be higher in sugar than others. For example, the banana bread protein balls that we're going to make today have 5 grams of sugar per ball. Now, for those that are in a diabetic diet plan, a dining plan, anything over 5 grams of sugar will spike their blood sugar. So we're going to use the banana bread one as an option for those diabetics out there because it's only got 5 grams per ball. Now, some of you might say, well, why do we have to worry about sugar? Well, for those that have to worry about sugars, I'm going to give you a really quick demonstration of what that really is. So, if I am a healthy person and I don't have anything like diabetes or high blood sugar, I can eat whatever I want. But if I do have a dining plan where I have to watch my carbohydrates or the amounts of sugar I eat, I need to count those things. So, if I'm a healthy person, this is what your blood should look like. The little white balls in here are examples of what your cells are doing in your blood. They should flow freely, okay? Now, if I'm a person that is supposed to watch my carbs and sugars and I don't do that, your blood actually starts to look like this. Notice how those blood cells, those white balls, don't flow very well. Okay? So this is an example of what happens if you don't follow that dining plan. It can do this. A diabetic has an increased chance of heart disease and peripheral neuropathy just because of this. So for those of you out there, you really need to do a good job of following your doctor's orders and your dining plans. So we make sure that we keep our cells able to freely flow. Now, for a diabetic, they also sometimes have peripheral neuropathy. That's where they get tingling in their hands and their feet. And that's because the blood can't get to those parts of the body, and the nerves in your fingers and your toes, they get angry. They say, hey, wait a minute, we want some blood, but it just takes so long to get there. And it's actually really painful. So if we can avoid that, we're going to do our best, okay? So, when it comes to like granola bars, if you're looking at a granola bar label, one of the first or second ingredients on a label is sugar. And it can be labeled as brown rice sugar, it can be agave syrup, it can be honey, it can be all those different things. So they're high in sugar. So by doing them by hand, they're not only cheaper, higher in protein, higher in fiber, which we talked about last week with the oatmeal lab, and lower in sugars or real sugars, we can kind of keep those healthier and a better option for us, okay? So the first one we're going to make today is the chocolate protein balls, okay? So, using some of the ingredients we did last week, you're going to need a big glass bowl. We're going to add a cup of oatmeal, half a cup of peanut butter, and again, if you have someone with a nut allergy, You can substitute sunflower butter. I use sunflower butter because I'm allergic to nuts. But I'm going to demonstrate with peanut butter day. So it's a half a cup of peanut butter. I'm going to put that in our bowl. We're going to add 1/3 of a cup of honey. Get this out of the way. Now, last week we talked about how there are different forms of sugar and how honey and pure maple syrup are naturally occurring sugars. So there's nothing artificial about them. They basically come from a beehive and a tree. Now, if you do have a diabetic that has to use artificial sweeteners, the problem with artificial sweeteners is they're 10,000 times sweeter than sugar. So for those of us that don't need to control that, our palate actually gets used to that sweetness to the point where we start craving food. For example, a person that is in a nursing home that has trouble with eating, they will actually have that person drink a diet soda before dinner so that they will eat more. And a lot of us use artificial sweeteners as a way to cut calories. And it's really actually messing up our palate, and it's kind of messing with our brain chemistry to make us want to eat more than we should. So if you're going to use an artificial sweetener, the best one out there is stevia, because it's actually just a plant. It's not anything chemically made, okay? So I've added the honey. I'm going to add some dark chocolate chips, which I chopped up to make smaller. But you can, buy miniature ones or whatever version you want. And then we're going to add 2 tablespoons. Now we used the flaxseed last week. Remember, we used flaxseed to increase the fiber. So by adding the fiber to this ball, it helps control that blood sugar. And then 2 tablespoons of chia seeds. And remember, we talked last week about the chia seeds, how they are just a phenomenal source of nutrition. So they are a great thing to add to lots of items like yogurts, smoothies, cereals. Heck, you could even sprinkle a little bit on some pudding, anything like that. Okay? Now, we're going to use a vanilla protein powder just because I wanted to be able to use it in other recipes. So we're going to be doing this class often, so I wanted to be able to buy something that we could use again. So I'm going to add a tablespoon of protein powder. And I actually put a list on there of ones that are a better option because they're not flavored with artificial sweeteners. I try to stay away from them, so you just kind of have to read the label and know which ones are better. And then we're going to reuse the cocoa powder from our lab last week. So again, we're not wasting our money. We're finding ways to use the same ingredients. We're going to mix that up. And you're going to want to just stir it until it's evenly distributed. So they're a lot like a no-bake cookie, except for we got a lot more protein in them, which makes them stabilize the blood sugar better. So they're higher in fiber and they're higher in protein than a regular no-bake cookie. So we're just kind of doing a little twist to something I know you guys have already made. And you'll see how that just becomes a nice little mixture. And then what you're going to do is you're going to make them into scoops. I brought my ice cream or my cookie dough scoop from home. So you're just going to take a scoop of that, mash them all up together, and then put them on a plate. And you can change, if you don't want the chocolate in there, you could make them with just the vanilla. You could add some cinnamon. You could add a little bit of vanilla extract. Again, I'm a chemist, so I like to experiment and kind of play around with things using the same ingredients. Now this recipe calls for 10 balls, and I've got 4 made so far. The nutritional information was sent with the recipe, so for those of you that have a dining plan, you can refer to that. If you make 10 balls, you'll know how many carbs, proteins, and sugars are in each one. Now these are a little higher in sugar than the banana bread ones we're making, but what you could do is leave out the chocolate chips and add maybe some real nuts in place of the chocolate chips. That would probably bring the sugar down enough so that the diabetics could enjoy them. And I'm getting 10 just by using my cookie scoop. Now what you're going to want to do when they're done is you want to put them in like a bag. You could put them in a bag or just cover them with saran wrap, and you're going to put them in the refrigerator for 30 minutes, okay? Any questions? Remember, write them down and we'll hit them up at the end, okay? The next recipe we're going to do is banana bread. Now, bananas are really high in potassium. They also have fiber. We're getting some protein from the nuts. The cinnamon that we're going to be using. Remember I said last week cinnamon is really good for helping us control our insulin. So we're going to have some cinnamon in this recipe. So let's go ahead and try these. We're going to do some oatmeal again. This recipe is 2 cups. And I'm going to actually put them in this. We don't have to, but this recipe actually calls for it. So 2 cups of oatmeal, and I don't quite have enough. I knew I was going to be close. And remember, we're using old-fashioned oatmeal because it's higher in fiber, so we're getting more bang for our buck. Where did I put my lid there? We're going to do a 1/2 cup of mashed banana. I just brought this from home, so I'm going to add the banana to this. I like to buy bananas and freeze them instead of eating them right away because I use them in smoothies and lots of other things. So I actually don't eat a lot of ripe bananas. I just buy them and throw them in the freezer. Let's see, we have almonds. So I'm going to add some almonds. You can change, this recipe calls for almonds and pecans. I'm going to use walnuts and almonds. There is a certain number of nutrients from each type of nut. So you can pick and choose which ones you want and which ones taste the best for your client. Walnuts are the healthiest. They have a lot of omega-3s. Almonds are probably second. Pecans is pretty close. The last one you want to use is probably a cashew. They're just not as healthy as the others. Last week I told you how I have a nut allergy, so I substitute peanut butter with sunflower butter, and then I also use sunflower nuts and pepitas in place of other nuts. But we're going to use almonds and walnuts today. So it's a 1/2 cup of each of those. And I got peanut butter in my 1/2 cup, so I'm going to use 1/4 cup just because it's easier. And again, you wouldn't have to use the food processor if you didn't want to. It just makes it easier with the nuts. And by processing them, then you have it in a finer form so that those that need it broken down a little bit smaller, it's easier to digest and easier to use. We're reusing our maple syrup. So the first recipe we used honey as a sweetener. This one we're using maple syrup. Again, it's in the pure form. So our body knows what to do with it. Add that in there. Vanilla. I think we forgot that. Michael, I'm borrowing your vanilla. And he's saying, yes, that's fine. 1/4 of a teaspoon. I love vanilla, so I use it a lot in yogurts. I buy the plain Greek yogurt and I use it in yogurt. I put it in my smoothies. I put it in my overnight oatmeal. It's just a really quick, easy way to make things sweeter without actually adding sugar to it. So it's a great thing. Cinnamon. Remember I said cinnamon helps us with insulin control. So this is why this recipe is so good for diabetics, because it's high in fiber, high in protein, but it's also got cinnamon in there, which helps with that too. And a little bit of salt. So I'm just going to add a pinch of salt. Now the reason we have to add salt to this one is because the peanut butter that we used in the other one, it has salt in there. And the peanut butter also has a little bit of sugar in also. All right? So what we're going to do is we're just going to mix that up. And this isn't my machine, so we're going to see how this goes here. Make sure that all those nuts are broken down fine enough. And you can see, mine at home turns the opposite way, so that's why I'm backwards here. Get my chocolate off of my broom, or my spatula here, I'll just use this one. Now you can see that it's kind of the same consistency as our other one. And let's see if I have another plate. I don't, so I'll use this one here. Thought I brought enough plates, but I didn't plan far enough ahead. So we're going to just go ahead and scoop these out. Now the recipe says that you should wait 30 minutes and then scoop them out. You can do it both ways. It's probably better to let them, they'll stick together better if they're colder. But as long as you wait the 30 minutes either before or after, they're still going to work. Okay, so those are the banana bread versions of our energy balls, protein balls. Quick, easy snacks. Everything takes about 10 minutes and then the 30 minutes to wait before you can eat them. Again, you can just experiment with this and have fun with your clients and try different varieties, add different spices. But this is a really healthy thing that they could make on weekends with their staff to have a little fun. And then they could bring them for snack instead of those unhealthy granola bars. So it's just a good option for us to have. I'm going to go ahead and have you guys unmute and see if you have any questions. I don't know if they heard me. Anybody have questions? Again, if you guys have questions, you can always send me an email. But the recipes will be posted, and then a video that you could watch. If you didn't join us today, you can watch it and do it at a later time. So go ahead and have fun with this. Thanks for joining. Next week, we're going to work with some chicken. So I look forward to seeing you guys next week. You guys have a great Valentine's Day, and thanks for joining us today.